Welcome to the Sacred Menstruation Workshop. I'm so honoured to be able to present this today and always. We've got a lot of content to get through. I want to also start by entering into a ceremonial space. It is currently the new moon phase, and the new moon is about setting intentions and planting seeds for the next month ahead, but also the next year ahead. So at the moment, there's a lot of Aquarius energy. If you check out my Instagram, I did yesterday a video with my soul sister Shay, who's an astrologer, about the Aquarius energy. So I won't go into that too much, but it's an exciting time for breaking free of conditionings, breaking free of control and systems, and there's a lot of truth coming to light. We're seeing that collectively people are starting to really wake up and see the corruption that's going on here, but particularly to focus on ourselves. We're wanting to focus on the conditionings, the beliefs and the patterns that have held us back from stepping into our true essence, our true self and our life purpose. And so sacred menstruation is a really powerful tool to create ritual, to create ceremony and a deeper connection to self. And we'll go through a little bit of the history of menstruation and just how it has been suppressed. So let's step into a ceremonial space, and then we will journey through the 4 weekly archetypes and the 4 moon phases, and we'll speak more about the new moon. But I want you now just to be in a nice, comfortable position, closing down your eyes and just breathing in through your nose to your heart space. And then exhale down through the body, through the womb space, down into the center of the earth. And again, breathing into the heart space. Exhaling down through the body, through the womb space, down into the center of the earth. One last time, breathing into the heart space. Exhaling down through the body, through the womb space, and down to the center of the earth. And just in your mind's eye now, just setting an intention for why you're here today, or why you're listening to this recording, why you signed up for this workshop, and your intentions of what you'd like to get out of it. And everything we do in life with intent is so much more powerful. And I'd like to acknowledge that breathing practice I just shared with you, breathing into the heart space and then exhaling down through the body, through the womb space and down into the center of the earth, is a very powerful tool to connect our energy with the earth, to send the energy down. Because as modern women, we have so much energy in our head. And with all this energy in our head, that creates, the monkey mind, busy mind, and a lack of body awareness. So traditionally, our energy was predominantly flowing down. We had a lot of energy in our hips, in our womb space. And you think about our ancestors did so much dancing around the fire and so much time sitting on the earth or squatting on the earth. And now we have so much technology and women are so busy, Facebook, Instagram, emails, businesses, kids, we're doing a lot. It's not as much of a slow, mindful way of living like our ancestors that were living off the land. So this breathing technique is something that is so simple that you can do while you're cooking, while you're cleaning, while you're meditating, while you're walking, and it's just sending the energy back down. And this is also a really simple tool to get that circulation and awareness into our womb space, then reduces PMS, painful menstruation, elimination issues, and of course birth. That's the energy that we need for anything to go down and out. And it's also a powerful way to release our emotions or release whatever is ever coming up for us back down into the earth. And when things are given to the earth as an offering, they can then come back transmuted into love. So it's a very, very simple and powerful breathing technique. So add that to your tool belt to use daily. All right, and I'm just going to start now with a invocation. So this invocation is a variation of, it's written by Jane Hardwick Collins, and I've changed some things. She's one of my teachers from the School of Shamanic Midwifery. It used to be, but it's now Womancraft. And it's also in the beginning of her book, 10 Moons. If anyone's pregnant or going to be pregnant, I highly recommend reading 10 Moons. It's a really beautiful, empowering book for pregnancy and for healing birth trauma as well. Okay, so just bringing your awareness into your heart space again, closing down your eyes. We call the divine feminine, the inner knowing within each of us. Feminine wisdom, courage, strength. We call the women who have gone before us, mothers, midwives, wise women, ancestors, be with us. Remind us to trust our bodies. Remind us to trust the birth process and to surrender our fears and worries. Remind us to simply be with what is, our awesome selves, powerful, creative, yielding and wielding. We call the ancient birth and fertility goddesses that women have called on forever to guide us, nurture us, protect us and support us. Bridget, Artemis, Ikchel, Freya, Yamanya, Changing Woman, Pukingak, Sri Lakshmi, Kuan Yin, Toret, Hatha, Gaia, Nanjantia, guardians of the gateway of birth. We give thanks for you answering our call. We give thanks for peace, for love, joy, and harmony. We give thanks for healing, for insight, for happiness, for fun, and for safety. We give thanks for our connection with the earth and the moon. We give thanks for the opportunity to heal ourselves and to help heal the world, to live our life purpose by sharing our medicine with the world. We give thanks for all of humanity to feel safe, supported, guided, and nurtured. We pay our respects to the original custodians of this land, whichever land you may be sitting on. I'm currently on a Wabikal country, and I give great thanks to the spirits and the guardians. Blessed be. So just take a moment to sit in this if you'd like, or if you feel drawn to take a photo of the invocation, if you would like a copy of it. I'll give you a minute to do that now. Allow the words that were spoken to resonate through your whole being. Again, just breathing into the heart space. Exhale down through the body, through the womb space, down into the center of the earth. In your mind's eye, just repeating 3 times, I call myself fully present. I call myself fully present. I call myself fully present. Okay. Let's move through some her story. So I love this quote. Disease, so dis-ease is disease, can only take hold in a woman when her Shakti, which is her feminine energy, is depleted and her rhythms are out of sync with Mother Nature. Sorry. So, you know, we can really tap into the modern woman, the modern life, and how we have these earthly rhythms. We have the seasons, we have the moon's rhythms, the different moon phases. Currently it's the new moon, and each season and each moon phase has a different energy, and when we're living in harmony with those energies, it's like a dance with this cosmic moon and earth energy, and we're in harmony with that, there's that flow, and the Shakti energy is enhanced because we're ebbing and flowing, we're waxing and we're waning, we're, bright and loud and social in summer, and then we're inward and hibernating in winter, and we're connecting and manifesting and creating when we're ovulating, and we're inward, we're retreating and resting when we're menstruating. So we'll go more into that, but I just love that quote because it's very powerful and it's very relevant, and that's why I'm here sharing this workshop, and this is why I do the work that I do, because it is so needed just to tap back into the ancient wisdom, to be more connected with the earth and the moon. And also my motto is to empower women to become their own healers, because we've also got this cultural conditioning where, as the cult of the expert, we're always seeking experts to give us the knowledge or heal us or fix us, where my job is to guide women back to their innate power, their innate wisdom that's inside of them. And that starts with being more connected to the earth and the moon. And from that, we gain our wisdom that we need, rather than, that we've spent many generations of going to see masculine doctors and trusting every word that they say. Think about our grandmothers and our great grandmothers, how doctors were just revered as the men, the ones to get all our wisdom from. But we're going through that, that's starting to shift now, and we'll speak about the matriarch, which is the feminine energy, and the patriarch, which is the masculine energy. So cultural conditionings and feminine suppression. So during the patriarchal shift to masculine dominant culture, it has been made to believe that menstruating women are dirty, impure, erratic, and even dangerous. So I got all these from some studies, and I'm going to do another document just with this wisdom here. But so a lot of women, a lot of people aren't aware of this. We're not taught the proper history. We're taught history, his story. We're not told her story. So 5,000 years ago, since the Bronze Age, around 5,000 years ago, before that time, was matriarchal rulership. What that means is the matriarch is the feminine energy. The matriarch is a connection to nature. Nature is the god or the goddess. The moon as well. So there was earth worship and moon worship, very feminine principles of ebbing and flowing, waxing and waning. Everything's ever changing. The women were the head of the house, the landowners. The women were worshipped. The pregnant women and the children were the absolute pinnacle of society, and really looked after and worshipped in a way. It was all the goddesses. So the statue that I've got there, but there's so many ancient goddesses and relics that they're finding at different temples around the globe, in Greece and Rome and Egypt. All these places they've found pre 5,000 years is all goddesses and pregnant women, and I can't think of her name, Shilanagik. That's it's around Celtic areas where she's the goddess that's pulling open her vulva, and they've found her in temples and along like water temples and things, like really ancient times. So this is pre 5,000 years ago, but we're not taught about this. It's very hush part of history or her story. It's really been suppressed, this wisdom and knowledge, but if you go looking, you can find it. My great auntie, actually, I'm going to go and do a video with her soon. She's got a PhD on feminine suppression and matriarchal times. I can't think of the actual word, the feminine principle. That's her PhD. So she's gone and studied all this stuff and has created a document which is going to be a book. So that's on my list of things I must do before she gets too unwell and old. She's already quite old and unwell, but I'm living quite close to her now, so that's on my list to do. I might even do that in the next couple of weeks and just gain as much wisdom from her and share it, because it's not what we're taught. So then the Bronze Age happened, and this was a shift in energy. And this was then, you know, the quest and conquer and the wars, and the Bronze Age was, and the Iron Age, all the weapons. Before that, there wasn't weapons. There was only self-crafted, you know, wooden things or stone things that they would use to hunt. There wasn't like that fighting and dominance. You know, the fighting comes from the energy of hierarchy. They're wanting to be above, they're wanting to quest and conquer and, you know, take this village for myself. And it's a very masculine energy. Where we connect back with the feminine energy, it's very, you know what feminine energy is. It's very self-nurturing and selfless and open-hearted. There's more compassion and open-hearted energy, where the masculine energy, there's more ego, more survival, more quest and conquer. So this is just it's not that it's right or wrong or that there was suppression. It's just a natural phase that we're going through. I've got a really good book called, I'll show you at the end of it. I can never think, I know it's Dark Moon something. And it's about the different moon phases and how we've been conditioned to be afraid of the dark. You know, the dark energy is evil and the dark moon is a horrible time. But really, the dark phases is when the goddess, the moon's turned away, and it's that inward energy which is allowing then the rebirth to happen. We have to have death so that we can have rebirth. And, you know, this is the understanding of reincarnation. We die so we can be reborn. And that's what's happening now collectively. You know, things are coming to our awareness. We're seeing all these truths. We're seeing the faults in the systems, and they're dying so they can be reborn. And it just takes away the fear when you have that understanding. And that's what's happened the last 5,000 years is the moon has turned away. In a way, the moon hasn't physically turned away, but the goddess energy has turned away. And the goddess energy has gone inward into her dark moon phase, ready to be reborn. And I don't think it's so much that we will have goddess worship and matriarchal rulership. I think it's coming to a time where it will be balanced. We will have the masculine energy and the feminine energy living in harmony. And however long that takes, I don't think we'll see it this lifetime. It could be another few thousand years. I'm not quite sure. It could just miraculously happen if enough people have the intention to create that. So yeah, so since the Bronze Age, with the suppression of the feminine principle, feminine worship and matriarchal rulership, the rise of the masculine, the patriarchal rulership, which brought with it the control and suppression of the feminine. I believe many cultures and religions have misinterpreted the foundations of why women would not be present at the time of worship and duties. So this is bringing in the cultural conditioning, where I spent a lot of time in Indonesia, or have previously until now, and your menstruating women are not allowed in temples. It's a very big rule, and it's, you know, written on all the temples. And I know last time I was there, I'd organised to go to this big full moon ceremony at one of the water temples, and of course my period came early on that day, so I had to miss out. But, you know, honouring the reasoning that they have behind that, but also the inner standing I have is actually that the women should be at home having their own space, inward time, their own rituals, their own time of retreat, and not at the temple socializing and being in ceremony with big groups of people and, you know, that collective energy. But it's been that truth's been manipulated over time to see women as dirty. No, you can't go to the temple because you're dirty and menstruating, and don't come near me kind of thing. And this is through a lot of cultures, which I will move on to my next slide here. So in India, it used to be custom, and in Orthodox Brahmin families, and it is still custom to this time, some of the Brahmin families still practice this. So a woman, when she's menstruating, has her own room in the home, and her sacred things and objects of worship are in this room. So that when she's menstruating, she has her own space and time of reflection, contemplation, renewal of her being, away from the responsibilities of her family, puja, which is their ceremonies, and kitchen duties. They retire into their room for at least 3 days, sleeping on her own in seclusion, doing her own washing only. And on the 4th day, the house is cleansed and the woman takes a bath, washes her hair, and comes out of her retreat. The next day, she returns to the temple and worship and returns to her family and duties. How cool is that? So the women actually get to have their retreat time, their renewal time. And while we're bleeding, we're so connected to our truth, to our prophecies. We have this deep connection and this deep clarity. The best amazing downloads that I've had is when I've allowed myself to have this space when I'm menstruating. And of course, it's quite hard when you become a mother, but doing whatever we can to create that space, even if you have, you know, you go for a massage once a month while you're bleeding, or you ask your partner to take the kids on half a day so you can go for a walk down in nature. Or we've got a bus, so I used to have one night to myself. I'd start menstruating or know that I was about to start menstruating. It's nice, that lead up as well. I find, you know, that PMS frustration that we get is like an inner resentment that we haven't allowed enough time and space for ourselves. And that we need space. We might be just overwhelmed being around other people's energies and we just need to be alone. So I'd take the bus and I would go to a sacred place that I love, and I would have one day and one night to myself. And of course, I couldn't really do that until my daughter was a bit older, but it was very powerful. It filled up my cup for the rest of the month. It was really, really amazing. So, and I involve my daughter in all of this. She knows when I'm menstruating, knows when I'm about to menstruate, and sees me do my ceremonies and my rituals, and she's connected to this, so she can see the sacredness and see that I need more space, see that I need more nurturing, and yeah, she's involved in this, which is part of the healing. So here's a few other things I'd like to share. So in Aboriginal Australia, the supernatural being known as the rainbow snake or the rainbow serpent has been interpreted as, amongst other things, an Indigenous way of conceptualizing the idea of synchronized tidal, lunar, menstrual and seasonal periodicities, whose overall harmony, it is believed, confers spiritual power and fertility. So there is a huge connection with a snake and feminine power and the kundalini, which goes up the chakras, up the spine, and once it hits your crown, that's like a spiritual awakening. You can find this through yogic texts, but the snake is very connected to feminine power. And yeah, I've watched lots of documentaries around. They believe that the snake was one of the first creatures, and from that there's the connection to the feminine energy. But we think about also how fearful we are of snakes in our, you know, custom traditional ways. We see snakes as evil and dark, and it's the same with the conditionings that we have here with the feminine energy. Yeah, just the dark. We're afraid of the dark. We see anything that's associated with dark as evil. And I've spoken about that being a very important phase to then come to the light, to the rebirth. And that's another thing that's really important is seeing light and dark as equal, seeing fertility, you know, our fertile ovulation phase and our menstrual phase as equal. Like there's no good and bad, right and wrong. There just is. And this is another thing of healing ourselves of duality. So just, yeah, seeing everything as a cycle, as a phase. We have to have the dark to get the light. We have to have death to have birth. So that's a huge part of healing our conditionings. And it makes our life a lot more graceful and easeful when we are able to be in that place of no good, no bad, no right, no wrong. It just is light, dark, good, bad, right, wrong, feminine, masculine. It's all something that we need to continue life. It shows in historic cultures, a menstruating woman was considered sacred and powerful, with increased psychic abilities and strong enough to heal the sick. Interesting. We don't hear about this very much, do we? According to the Cherokee, menstruating blood was a source of feminine strength and had the power to destroy enemies. And menstrual blood is viewed as especially dangerous to men's power. In Africa, menstrual blood is used in the most powerful magic charms in order to both purify and destroy. So we can see here, these are some things that I've got offline that can be referenced. And I'm going to put a proper document together at some stage and do a post with all this. But we don't hear about this stuff. And you can kind of see now through the patriarchal rulership, you know, if women were so powerful and so connected to the land and their menstrual blood was so powerful, how that would be a threat to the patriarchal and the masculine rulership. So they've suppressed the women, and you can see that through the rape and pillage, the witch hunts in Europe or all over the world. Any woman that was seen to be powerful or connected to herbs, like all the herbal healers, the midwives, and you know, I'm sure we've all been these women in past lives, and that's why we still have this fear in us to really speak our truth, to really be seen, because back those few thousand years ago, if we were seen as powerful or fully seen, we were killed. And yeah, that's just part of the masculine rulership that's taken place. And that's another thing, is like the healing menstrual blood shame. So we are conditioned that menstrual blood is dirty. And you know, as a teenage girl, I think the worst possible thing would be to have a blood stain on the back of your school uniform at school. Like, you know, that would be horrendous, because we are conditioned that it's dirty, and that suppresses our power. So that's something to sit with. Sit with how you feel about your blood. What does it mean to you? And how can you heal the blood shame? How can you then, you know, whatever healing we do in ourselves, we're passing that down to the next generation. So I collect my blood. I either, the first day, I don't really like using my moon cup, so I'll use a pad, and then I soak the pad in some water, and then I'll go out and I'll water my garden once I finish bleeding with my daughter, and it fertilizes the plant and its plants, and it's giving that back to the earth with intention. So I can say my new moon prayers or my blood prayers, what I'm releasing and what I'm inviting into my life. And this is a part of the magic and the ritual and the routines that we had back those 5,000 years ago. And one huge download, it's probably the biggest download that I've ever received that allowed me to go in and research all this stuff, actually was, it came up through some blood shame. I was soaking a pad in had a special watering can that it was just for that, or maybe hadn't flushed the toilet properly or something, and my husband had come out to me and said, look, it really disturbs me when I see blood around. It feels dirty, and I don't like it. And so that the fire, it was a day one of my bleed, and I was bleeding quite heavily. I was just overwhelmed by fire, and I was like, get out, get out of here. It triggered me so hard, and he left, and I was like shaking and sobbing and crying, and I was like, the blood's powerful, it's medicine, I know it, like we're so conditioned, I knew this. And then went in and started researching all this stuff and getting the snippets of the tiny bits that I could find online. And the download that I received is, I believe through this download, it was so real, that all women would have been menstruating at the same time with the moon. Can you imagine how powerful that would be all over the globe? Like, sure, there's different time zones and maybe a day or two variation. But I strongly believe pre this 5,000 years ago, when we were in ceremony, doing rituals, giving our blood back to the earth, worshipping the full moon, worshipping the seasons, how connected we were with the earth's energy and the moon energy, that all women would have been menstruating on the new moon and then ovulating at the full moon. And all the men in the tribe were aware of this and maybe partook in the ceremonies, but maybe it was just the women that did it on their own. There's a book called The Red Tent, which is it's kind of fictional, factual, fictional. I'm not sure. It feels factual to me. But it's about all the women in, you know, the biblical days would leave the men and have their own tent, and they would free bleed on the earth. They would massage each other, nourish each other, and just have that woman time while they're all bleeding at the same time at the new moon. And then they would have downloads and prophecies and insights. And then they would come back when they've all finished bleeding, come back into their tribe and share their prophecies and their insights. And that was all welcomed in as part of their culture and part of what their tribe needed, because the women could have downloads of like, oh, we're about to be attacked, or we need to move here, or the water's over there, or we need to bring this herb in. And, you know, they would have really powerful prophecies to share with the tribe for the whole tribe's well-being. So yeah, and also, you know, if all women around the globe were menstruating at the same time, they're all inward, they're all releasing, they're all gaining prophecies, they're all releasing back to the earth, giving their blood back to the earth, how powerful that would be. And then they're all rising, creating, manifesting, you know, all the beautiful things that they would have their gardening rituals as well through that. And you see now, like, there's so much dissonance in society in general, and there's also a place of trusting and surrendering that we have the experience we need to have. Like currently I've just moved across the country and my cycle shortened to 21-day cycle, which I've never had. I've always been more of a longer bleeder. I would not ovulate and it would get pushed back when I had polycystic ovarian syndrome. But now when I'm in an ungrounded state, it's a shorter cycle. So I've got the opportunity to bleed on each different moon phase the last couple of months. And it's really beautiful having that experience. Of course, when I am able to connect it with the new moon, it's so much easier because you have that deep inward energy. You really rest and retreat and, you know, can connect from that dark place. You know, you turn off the lights, turn off all the lights, closing down your eyes, and then you're really connected inward because it takes out the outside noise. But bleeding on the full moon, it's like this conflicting energy. I want to be inward, retreating and resting, but I want to be out there in society. I still want to be seen. I still want to be posting on Instagram and doing things because there's this creative, fertile energy from the moon, but there's this inward energy from my inner moon. So it's a bit of a conflicting energy. And I've got some post and blog post about this called Lunar Asynchrony. And I'm going to be doing a video with Jane Hardwick-Collins about this soon. And it's about the different medicine of menstruating on different moon phases. So, you know, bleeding on the new moon is seen as the, you know, the good wife, the fertile woman, the family woman. And it's when, from my experience, it's when I'm more working on myself, or when I've been able to cultivate a balance. So my balance is 2 weeks in. So when I'm premenstrual and when I'm bleeding, it's inward time. And then I finish bleeding and it's my outward time. And then I'm creating projects, seeing clients, jumping on calls. And so that 2 weeks works really well. And I'll go through it a bit more once we finish this little bit. I'm jumping ahead a bit here, but it's having that balance. But it's really important to have our inward time and our outward time, and not get too caught up on being too outward or being caught up on being too inward, because then that will flip your cycle, from my experience. So let's talk about that a little bit more once I get past this bit. So and if anyone's got any questions, which I think there is a question. Cool. Alicia is from Albury Wodonga. Nice. And yeah, if you've got any questions, just write them in the chat and I'll see it pop up and I can answer them, or you're welcome to unmute yourself if you need. So the sociological theorist Emile Durkheim argued that human religion is entirely emerged originally in connection with menstruation. His argument, and I love that he's a guy, his argument was that a certain kind of action, collective ritual action, could establish simultaneously totemism, law, exogamy, I don't know what that is, and kinship, in addition to distinctively human language and thought. from which it follows that the blood is a divine thing. When it runs out, the God is spilling over. So these are all bits of, I spent the whole day in my little bubble when I had this download in my little sacred room that I had in my old house, and gained all these little bits of wisdom from online, from a lot of looking. It was a whole probably 10-hour mission of meditating and then looking here and copying, pasting, but I still haven't compiled a proper document with all this, so I will be doing that soon. And Nala Yogini Tantra is a really great book for the yogis out there. I highly recommend. Some of these quotes are from that book. So just as our body is casting off substances it doesn't need anymore, so we too can throw off worn old ideas and self-images and make the most of this opportunity for self-renewal. So that's speaking about, when we're menstruating, it's a release, it's a detox. We're releasing blood, we're releasing old blood, old stem cells. And there's actually traditionally in Chinese medicine and in Ayurveda, one of the detox practices were to put leeches on you, and the leeches would suck out the blood. But as women, we don't need to do that because we have the gift of menstruating each month. And if we could get into the schools and teach the young women this stuff, that menstruating is a sacred thing and that it's actually really amazing for us to be detoxing each month. Women that skip their periods a lot from taking the pill have higher chances of cervical cancer, because obviously that detox, the blood releasing each month is helping that energy circulate. And it's really high in stem cells and all these beautiful things. So we need to be honored and respected and see our menstrual cycle as sacred. And obviously you've already got a mild idea of that, or maybe a huge idea of that because you're on this workshop today. But it's all about our mental, it's all about our thoughts and beliefs and conditionings. We can label our cycle as sacred. It's up to us to label it as sacred. And I guess gaining all these tools help you to be able to label it as sacred. And I hope you can gain this knowledge and this insight and then go and share it with your daughters, share it with your communities. Start running circles or something where you can share this wisdom, and every woman deserves, it's her birthright to have this wisdom, and it's already inside of us. We just need to remember. Okay, so we'll go into the nitty-gritties of the moon phase. So this is my menstrual wheel that I have created. You can buy a copy of this. I think it's about $9 on my website. And then you can download it and get it printed. It's a beautiful thing to have framed. I'm going to do another one with some different color tones, more greens. I'm going through all green phases. You can see all my things are green. Let's start down here. So I'm just going to go through this just kind of briefly, and then we've got more in-depth slides for 1 week each week. So right now, this is the collective energy. So whether you're menstruating or not, this is the energy that is up in the atmosphere. It is the new moon. It's an inward time for rest, rejuvenation, renewal. If you're ovulating right now, it's a bit of that conflicting energy, which I am. I've just finished ovulating, so I'm starting to go down more into the autumn weeks. So it sort of feels like a similar alignment. And when I was talking about the 2 weeks in and 2 weeks out, for me, this is week 1 of my inward time, and then week 2 of my inward time. And then naturally, as soon as you finish bleeding, there's like this, spring energy start to build in your energy. And then, your ovulation is a really expressive, manifesting, creative time. So week 1. So let's just, whether you're ovulating or menstruating, if you're ovulating at the moment, it can be quite confusing. Let's just really focus on, it is confusing. So let's just focus on the moon. But if you can just understand the moon's energy, let's just focus on when you're menstruating, okay? Just imagine you're bleeding right now. Okay, and like I mentioned, if you bleed on the new moon, it's a lot easier to really cultivate that energy. There's not that conflicting energy, but to also trust whatever experience you're having, you need to have for a reason. But I've found you can actually shift your cycle with a bit of intention. The first time I was able to do that, I've always been a full moon bleeder, and I have been able to shift it to the new moon. The first time was about 10 years ago when I started to gain all this awareness. I had an external light coming in my window at night time. So it was kind of like my body just thought it was the full moon all month long. And no matter what curtains we put up, there was still this light coming through. So it's our pineal gland that picks up the light and the full moon, and that balances our hormones, or, creates the hormones that we need to ovulate with the full moon. So number one is try and make sure you don't have external light at nighttime. If you do, I started wearing an eye mask to bed around the new moon phase for a week of the new moon week. And I think I only did that for a month or two. It wasn't very long, and then it flipped. Then I was bleeding on the new moon and ovulating on the full moon. I was like, oh, this is so much easier, so much less conflicting energy. So that's one way you can do it. And the 2 weeks in and the 2 weeks out, that really helps as well. If you're working full time, or imagine working in the corporate world, you're working 9 to 5, busy, 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 got kids on the weekend, busy, busy, busy. If you're not allowing yourself to have that inward time, that rest, rejuvenation, that slowness, if you're just going all month long, which society conditions us that we should be going all month long. And that's why there's things like coffee or ceremonial cacao now, because it picks us back up. And it's quite often we get to, we ovulate and we've got this peak in energy. We're feeling creative. We're feeling great. Our skin's looking great. We just feel like we want to make babies. And then what happens here, then after the egg's released, and the egg dissolves when conception hasn't taken place, there's a dip in hormones. There's sort of like an emotional dip as well, like, oh, I didn't conceive this month. And that's the initiation into the autumn week. And that's the initiation into more inward time. And that's generally where we will crave chocolate and coffee and stimulants and things to perk us back up. It's like, oh, where'd all my energy go? I'm just so tired. And we can feel this as well coming into the new moon. It's been such a tired week for most people, unless they're ovulating, because it is darker. So we should rest more when it's darker in the atmosphere. But also winter, of course, we rest more in winter. There's more dark time in winter, so we sleep longer. And so we have that monthly as well. And yeah, that's the initiation into the inward time. And then we have that inward time while we're menstruating and then coming back out. So again, let's just connect back in with our bleeding week. So that it's week 1, it's south. South is the direction. And it's interesting, it's south, it's like down, the blood is flowing down, like that breathing practice we did at the beginning. Week 1, crone. So the crone goddess is the enlightened grandmother. She's the old wise woman, living in the forest by herself. And she can't see so well. She uses her stick to feel around and feel where she's going. She knows when to rest. She doesn't compete with the external world for energy. She knows her truth. She's had the whole life cycle to be really connected with who she is and what she's about. So that's the energy of our bleed. That's the energy we need to cultivate. We're not conflicting energy with our family and the external world. We have this deep inner knowing of what we need and what needs to happen. And we're not wasting our energy. We're feeling around, we're feeling better. We don't have to see as much. We can feel what we need and what we need to be doing. So death, It's a high estrogen, it's release, it's yin, it's letting go, it's winter. We're resting more, we're inward more, we're sleeping more. In Ayurveda, it's the Vata energy that moves the blood out, and it's the Pitta energy that has the fire energy for transformation and metabolism. And that's what's happening. It's this transformation, this alchemy that's happening as we're shedding our blood. We're cleansing, we're retreating, and it's a deep inward time. And then also when we're menstruating, the follicle is maturing, ready for the next ovulation. So if you are wanting to conceive, and I do guide couples through conscious conception programs to detox and nourish themselves before conception, but the bleed before conception is the really important one. There's 3 months, it takes the eggs 3 months to mature and the sperm 4 months to mature. But that bleed right before conception, that's the last bleed, and that's where the actual egg that's going to be released is maturing, ready to be released. So it's a very, very important time of conscious conception. We're moving into the maiden phase. It's the spring energy. We start to feel that vitality coming back, the creative energy starting to stir. And quite often when we're menstruating, we will have, we've got our prophecies and our ideas. We may gain downloads if we allow the time and space, but it's not a time to put them into conscious action. It's a time to write them down and sit on it. It's a very important time to be inward and journal. And then as we start to come into the spring phase, you might bring in some ideas how we can implement, or starting to get that energy moving. Ready for expression and manifestation when we're ovulating. So spring, week 2, is maiden energy. That's our young selves. And, our maiden selves believed we could go all day, and we were competing with everyone for energy. And there's this immaturity. So it's really important to bring that crone wisdom into the maiden phase, so we don't just jump 2 steps over and start running again back to life, to still have this waning, waxing effect where we're slowly coming back in, because I've had that a lot myself. My experience is I've had this deep inward time while I'm menstruating, particularly when menstruating on the new moon, and then as soon as I finish bleeding, it's like, I want to go to Ashtanga yoga and I want to do all these things. So just to be mindful of that, because you can burn yourself out if you jump in too quickly. But generally it should be more of a waning into that spring energy. And so that's, re-emerging, rebirth, new energy, renewal, earth, and rebuilding. So the uterus is starting to rebuild itself. The estrogen spiking, building up the uterus lining, ready for the release of the egg and for ovulation. And then week 3 is the mother archetype, the mother goddess. So the mother is the peak phase of our life. The mother phase of our life is also when we do the most and be the most, careers and children and mortgages and, doing all the things. It's kind of like the pinnacle. It's like all the young women want to be the mother archetype, but then we become the mother archetype and we want to be the maiden. It's like, but it's very much, while we're ovulating, we feel amazing. There's this juiciness. Our skin is glowing. The pheromones are being excreted, and we just can articulate our words better. So I try to do calls and do workshops while I'm ovulating. I can articulate better. I feel more open and connected. Where if I try to run a workshop while I'm menstruating, oh dear, I don't want to talk. I just want to be inward, and I can't articulate my words. I get really, stuck, and it's just like, I shouldn't be sharing right now. I should be in my cave meditating. So ovulation energy is yang, it's active, it's a water element, there's that juiciness, it's expansive, manifestation, progesterone spikes, with high creative, fertile energy. And of course, if you're ovulating on the new moon, it's that conflicting. So it's not as embodied and powerful as the full moon. And when it aligns that you ovulate on the full moon, it's like double whammy, because what's above is also below. And yeah, trusting whatever experience you need to have. They say, I don't know if I got to that. So if you're menstruating on the full moon, it is the menstrual cycle of the healer or the witch or the wise woman that is in service to society. So when you're ovulating, when you're menstruating on the full moon, you don't have as much deep inward energy. It's more this, it is a conflicting energy of you still wanting to show up and share and be of service, but you're also menstruating at the same time. So it's a menstrual cycle of the healer. And that's what my system usually gravitates more to, menstruating on the full moon. The last year I've been able to cultivate it to more on the new moon, because I believe of the 2 weeks inward and the 2 weeks outward, really scheduling my business around my menstrual cycle, you know, being off Instagram as much as possible and not posting while I'm menstruating. But then when I'm ovulating, posting and sharing, connecting, organizing calls, and that has kept it linked up with the new moon until I've just moved and going up and down the coast, and life's a bit crazy. It's now shortened to a 21-day cycle, and I've just ovulated, so I should bleed just before the full moon. Yeah, so yeah, like I mentioned earlier, so then ovulation comes up, and then, you know, you've got all your cervical mucus and the beautiful fertile juiciness, and then your egg's released, and then the egg dissolves, and there's generally a slump in hormones, and then you're moving into the autumn phase. That's the initiation into the autumn phase, which is bringing your energy back in. So it's like the juiciness all dries up. You know, in autumn, all the leaves are drying up and falling off the trees. So it's the air element. We're preparing for retreat, surrendering, processing. PMS, this is the PMS crazy week. And it's actually, you know, you can connect to it, but it's actually one of the most powerful weeks, and I'll speak more about that after each week, going through in more detail. But it's a very important week, so we're more connected to the subconscious. We can see things clearer. It's like the thinning of the veils. We start to see what's not working for us, what's not serving us. And it's also bringing to our awareness what we need to release when we're bleeding. So it's like this process of, you know, autumn, realizations, coming more inward, menstruating, releasing, gaining wisdom and insights in that inward time when we're not as connected to the external, we're more connected to the internal. And then spring coming up and rebirthing, coming back out to ready to full bloom, to be fully seen in summer. So it's just such a powerful thing to connect with these, and to really embody them and have the ritual and awareness throughout the different weeks. And for women also that aren't menstruating, I've seen so many women that might not have had their period for, one was 5 years and I think the other was 9 years. I didn't menstruate for 3 years. I think there was 2 3-year lots. It was 1 3-year lot where I had that stupid stick thing, that implanon in my arm, and I didn't menstruate for 3 years. And it might have been another 3 years when I got that taken out, somewhere around that, before I got my menstrual cycle to balance out. And with the awareness I've got now, of course, that would have been a lot quicker process. But simply by women connecting with the moon phase and implementing this ebb and flow throughout the month, not expecting themselves to be the same all month long. And same for breastfeeding women as well. To really, if they're not menstruating, to really connect with the moon phases, have that inward time of rest and rejuvenation on the new moon, and then that creative fertile energy on the full moon. It's connecting back with that waxing and waning, and we feel so much more sane when we have that connection, because while you're breastfeeding or while you're not menstruating, there's just this, like, you know, there's not this release and, you know, ebb and flow, which we really need. You know, I'm sure you would have had an experience before where our bleed is late, and it's like that autumn phase is dragged out and you just can't wait for your bleed to come, because it's like that release. We need that. And if we don't physically have that, breastfeeding, menopause, and missing cycle, we can connect with the moon phase and create that ritual and that awareness through cultivating the different energies of the moon phases. So let's move on. Like I mentioned, you can get this off my website if you'd like to get it printed. Cool. So as women, our menstrual cycle brings with it the gift of a deep connection, a connection to Mother Nature, a connection to the moon and the divine feminine. All right, so just re-ingraining the importance and the medicine of each week. So week 1, crone wise woman, new moon, day 1 to 7, it's winter, south, Vata phase. It's release, intention, planting seeds inward and renewal. So thinning of the veils starts in the autumn phase, but it's very much present in week 1. It's yin feminine energy, bleeding, letting go, shedding old stuff, low energy, inward energy, transformation, space and quiet time. To honor your cycle and this intense detox process, it is time to rest deeply for at least the first day or 2 of your bleed. But if you can for the 3 days, that would be amazing. Allow all your energy to be internal, avoiding all physical, mental, and emotional stimulation and exertion if you can. This is hard in the modern world, of course, but any effort is better than none. To utilize this powerful and sacred time to honor yourself, connect with your needs and not the needs or wants of others. Be true to yourself. If you do not look after yourself first, you won't have the energy and capacity to look after others. Very important message for mothers. Menstrual conditions like clotting, pain, cramps, and brown spotting and blood are from not honoring your cycle and resting the first couple of days of your moon cycle the month prior. So yeah, if we're menstruating and we're too physically active, it's then parts of we might finish bleeding early. You know, if you bleed for 1 day, or particularly the first day of your bleed's a very sensitive time, and you go surfing or go for a run or go for horse riding or something like that, or if you're then triggered into the stress response, your bleed can stop because your body prioritizes survival over reproduction. So anytime, like even if you might be going to ovulate and you have a stressful experience, I was very sensitive that even if my partner and I had a fight, I would not ovulate. And that was what was causing my longer cycles. If I was exerting too much energy or in that stress response while I was going for a run, our body doesn't know the difference of being chased by a tiger and in survival mode to sometimes going for a run or having a fight with your partner or getting a stressful email, depending on how sensitive you are and how many emotional triggers you have going on. We can be hypersensitive, and then our body will stop menstruation or stop ovulating. So of course, if we're menstruating and a tiger's chasing after us back in the pre-mortal tribal days, that's pretty dangerous. And our body wants us to survive. So it will shut off menstruation, and it will also then shut off ovulation because it's not going to waste energy on releasing an egg when there's danger around. So that's a huge one to share with other women. Our bodies prioritize survival over reproduction. And so then you can link back to, you know, women that don't bleed or have irregular cycles or, particularly not menstruating. It's being in that stress response. And that's been my experience being on this journey for the last 12 years now. And I haven't even shared my journey, but you can find that on Instagram somewhere. But yeah, I have had a lot of my own health. I had my own health journey when I was 21, a lot of hormonal issues, polycystic ovarian syndrome, hypothyroidism, anxiety, depression, all the things. And it was just because I was trying to fit into society's model of being this person, like this productive person that went to the gym twice a day and worked all week and did lots of things on the weekend. And I never gave myself the time to rest and rejuvenate and go inward. And so the universe forced me to not get out of bed for months, and it pushed me onto my own healing journey, which allowed me to study all this stuff and be the person I am today. So it was really a blessing that I had a health crisis at such a young age. So rituals that we can talk about. Week 1, like I mentioned, if you can, collect your blood with either a moon cup or soak your pads in a bit of water and give that back to the earth, and speak to the earth what you're releasing, and then also what seeds you're planting. So I just mentioned to you how physically your seed is, your egg is maturing, your follicle is maturing into an egg ready to be released. So too are we planting the seeds for the next month ahead. So really inviting in what you want to have, what experiences you want, how you want to feel, what conditionings, beliefs, thoughts, patterns, situations you're releasing, and then what you're inviting in. More specifically, the dark moon, or just before you're coming into your bleed, is when that's coming to your awareness of what you need to release. And then when you're bleeding, then you're releasing, actually physically releasing it, and then planting the seeds. And for me, my most favorite cycle is actually bleeding on the dark moon and then finishing bleeding on the new moon. So it's like the dark moon's at 3 days before the new moon, the tiny little slip that comes with the new moon. And the dark moon's that real dark inward phase. And I've wondered if that's actually traditionally where we would have bled, is actually on the dark moon, because people get confused, new moon, dark moon, and think it's the same thing, but it's not. There's actually 3 days of darkness before the new moon. And bleeding on that time feels really powerful, because it's like then the new moon, it's a bit confusing, but the new moon's then, that integration into the spring energy. Yeah, and that's just my experience. So week 2, waxing moon, day 7 to 14, east, and east is where the sun rises. Spring, all those fresh blossoms coming in spring, and that freshness. And it's the kapha phase as the uterus lining is starting to build. Renewal, integrating, implementing, rising light and vitality, like coming out of hibernation, stepping back out into the world and nourishing the new insights and ideas that you have gained from week 1, and start integrating, implementing, and expressing. Strong and clear, feel the rise in energy, moving into the light, enthusiasm and vitality for the new cycle ahead. So physically, estrogen's thickening the uterine walls, and the follicles are maturing, and the ovaries preparing for ovulation. And of course, it's the maiden, like we spoke about. Week 3 is ovulation week and the mother archetype, and the week that society expects us to be this all month long. But we're not. We ebb and wane, and it would be so amazing for, the masculine corporate world to acknowledge this. I think there is, slowly becoming more awareness. My teacher, Jane Hardwick-Collins, is going in and actually doing workshops in the corporate world to bring in menstrual awareness, which is really cool. So that's week 3, day 14 to 21. It's a mother archetype. It's north, it's summer, and it's another kapha phase with a touch of vata when the egg moves. So it's expansive, creative, fertile, and illumination. Energy peaks at this time with personal power, self-confidence, strength, manifestation, creation, fertility, passion, shining heart energy. I wonder why society expects us to be like this all month long. It's outward masculine energy with high creativity. Start putting your ideas into practice. Start sharing. Start getting all your ideas down. This might be, I'm all for going to bed early and getting up early, but quite often, being a mother, ovulation phase, I allow myself to stay up a bit later so I can work on my projects, because I'm, cultivating that high creative energy, particularly if it's on the full moon. If I'm ovulating on the full moon, I just can't deny staying up late creating things. So it is the best time to start new projects. Libido is the highest at this time as well. You know, you might not have sex with your partner all month long, and if you are going to have sex once a month, this would be the time that it would happen. I noticed my husband isn't much of a cuddly kind of guy, but he would naturally start cuddling me through the night when I was ovulating. I mean, he didn't know that I was ovulating, but it's just, I guess, the pheromones just bring them closer because nature wants us to procreate. So week 4, we're going to speak more about week 4. This is a very powerful week that gets not looked at as often as it should. So it's the enchantress energy. It's also the Marga. So the Marga is the menopausal woman. It's more, you know, that phase before stepping into the crone phase of life. So day 21 to 28. It's west, it's the setting sun, autumn. It's an inward, sensitive surrender and process time. And so what is not okay is not okay. We're hypersensitive, emotionally, physically, and mentally. Feminine, inward, drawing energy, subconscious connection, patterns and conditionings come to light. Feeling deeply, be, not do. Prioritize. It's a sensitive time. So truth time. Use this time as a gift. Women have this time as a precious and sacred time for self-realization, to raise our awareness and consciousness, honor your body, to heal the feminine, to let go and allow the sacred energy to flow. So as we start to step into this inward time, out of the whole month, this is a very powerful time to go get a massage, to really nurture yourself, allow your time and space. Of course, while you're menstruating is a beautiful time to get a massage as well, but it just can be a bit of a conflicting energy. Like if your energy is already flowing down and out, like the breathing practice we did, quite often when we're getting a massage, they're moving that energy up and out. So if you can prioritize, all women should prioritize going to get a massage once a month on week 4, in that PMS week, in the autumn week. So that's a very important monthly self-care ritual. Find a massage therapist that you resonate with and go get a beautiful, flowy, oily massage once a month. You deserve that. We all deserve that. And also bringing in a ceremony of womb steaming. So I've got an Instagram video on I've also got it on my website and a blog with more information on yoni or womb steaming. So yeah, it's on Instagram TV as well. And it's a beautiful ceremony of collecting some beautiful herbs. I sell little jars of herbs from my garden, and also little packets. But you can collect your own lavender, tulsi, holy basil, rose petals, raspberry leaf is a very important one. And you put a handful of the herbs in with a big pot and boil it up. And you can just wrap up a towel and put it on, you know, if you've got a big pot, that's great. The other thing I've used is a thermo saver. If you've got a thermomix, you might know what a thermo saver is. For some reason, that's epic because it's double lined, and for some reason it doesn't get hot on the top of the lip. So you can sort of just put a little towel, a little cushion down and just squat. Depends on your flexibility as well. I'm quite good at squatting. It's good just to get comfy and let the steam go inside your yoni for 15-20 minutes. So this is a very powerful ritual to have that time, be in a ceremonial space, light some incense, light some candles, do that for 15 to 20 minutes and then go have a bath if you can. You could do that on the same day as your massage. And it's just bringing in that self-nurturing energy because this is a very sensitive time. And we're moving into that deep inward rest time. And if we really allow ourselves this time and space to be in ritual, to be in ceremony, to create a sacred environment and to really release and rest and surrender and go inward, it fills our cup up for the next month ahead. It's this time that we need for ourselves. And yeah, if we do really honor this time, we don't get resentful and frustrated for the whole month. I don't know if you're all mamas, but some of you are mamas. And even if you're not mamas, it's just the feminine energy is more self-sacrificing, selfless. nurturing, caring, you know, even if you're working in the corporate world, it's just that feminine energy that is inherent inside of us is more giving. And if we're giving all the time, we get depleted and we get resentful. So these simple tools of allowing ourselves the time and space to create a sacred cycle, to create rituals and routines around our menstrual cycle is so powerful. It's powerful to have a daily self-care ritual as well, whether that's just lighting incense, or I like to bring in Ayurvedic practices of detoxing by tongue scraping and having a lemon water or having a cacao and sitting down and doing some breathing and meditating, even if it's just for a couple of minutes. That creates a space at the beginning of the day. I preach the first hour of our day determines the rest of our day. So if we can start our day, nice slow day, by doing something sacred, by doing a little ritual, by breathing into our body, that breathing is connecting our mind and body, particularly nostril breathing, connects the mind and body, and then we have more presence and sacredness for the day ahead. But this is the same for our menstrual cycle. If we create this ritual, the ceremony, the inward time, the breathing, the meditating through week 4 and week 1, it's setting us up for the next month ahead. And it's like when we started this webinar, we set our intentions. We did something sacred at the start of this before I started bombarding you with knowledge and insight. We started with an invocation, we started with some breathing and setting our intentions, and then that sets the foundation for whatever is to come. So really, really let that sit in and let that come into your awareness that the first hour of our day determines the rest of our day, and the beginning of our cycle determines the rest of our cycle. So again, I think I mentioned in one of the other slides, painful menstruation, clots, headaches, all the symptoms while we're menstruating are symptoms from not honoring our bleed the cycle before. Brown spotting, stale leftover blood from the cycle before. So if we really start that week 4 is the integration and stepping into that well, the whole cycle is sacred, but week 4 is stepping into that inward time, bringing in the self-care practices, bringing in the tools that you have, particularly if you usually get painful menstruation. Womb steaming is amazing. There's also castor oil packs. I have a video on how to do castor oil packs on my Instagram. Castor oil packs are great for polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, painful periods, clots, cysts, fibroids, any growths or inflammation on the womb space. Castor oil packs dissolves the growths and reduces inflammation. So these really simple ancient tools that we can bring in to really enhance our menstrual experience and helps us then to label it as sacred. It's up to us to do that, to put in the tools. And like I said, get the whole family involved, get your partner involved with this awareness, to pass our knowledge down to our daughters and our sons, to then bring that in for the next generation. And the other thing you can, I've spoke a lot at the beginning about how women would leave their families and go into their own room for 3 days and 3 nights and not have any responsibilities and just have the time and space to connect with their prophecies and their insights. And, might be a bit hard with our modern lives and what society expects of us, but we can do whatever we can do. Like I mentioned, go get a massage, do a womb steam, you can have a bath. You can do that all after the kids are gone to bed if you're a mum. The other thing you can do is just cook up a big pot of dal, a massive pot of dal, so you don't have to cook for 3 days and 3 nights, and don't clean for 3 days and 3 nights. Don't go on social media for 3 days and 3 nights. That would be amazing. Just switch off, just make life simple, connect inward. It's not that difficult. It can be really, really powerful. So it's up to you how much you can do and what you allow, what experience you allow. But yeah, just start preparing, start going inward in week 4. And I'm just going to read now a really powerful quote here by Eckhart Tolle. So, I need a drink of water. Won't be a sec. Okay. So I love reading this. This is Wise Words from Eckhart Tolle on the female pain body. So most of you would have heard of him. He's the author of The Power of Now and the New Earth. So the collective dimensions of the pain body has different strains in it. Tribes, nations, and races all have their collective pain body, some heavier than others, and most members of that tribe, nation, or race have a share in it to greater or lesser degree. Almost every woman has her share in the collective female pain body, which tends to become activated particularly just prior to the time of menstruation. At that time, many women become overwhelmed by intense negative emotion. If you are able to stay alert and present at the time and watch whatever you feel within, rather than be taken over by it, it affords an opportunity for the most powerful spiritual practice, and a rapid transmutation of all past pain becomes possible. Suppression of the feminine principle, especially over the past 2,000 years, has enabled the ego to gain absolute supremacy in the collective human psyche. Although women have egos, of course, the ego can take root and grow more easily in the male form than in the female. This is because women are less mind identified than men. They are more in touch with their inner body and the intelligence of the organism, where the intuitive faculties originate. The female form is less rigidly encapsulated than the male. It has a greater openness and sensitivity towards other life forms and is more attuned to the natural world. How cool is that? From the man himself. And yeah, it just shows that we're actually connected in week 4, the autumn week. We're connected to all the feminine pain, all the suppression. He was saying that, of course, where there's the pain body according to the tribes and the land that we live on, whatever experience those ancestors have had are a part of us. But when we're about to menstruate in week 4, we're connected to all the female's pain, all the feminine pain through, the suppression of the last 5,000 years, I believe. So to be aware of that, see what's coming up for you. You're not, you can't just label that you're pissed off at your partner that he never vacuums. There's something deeper under there. And, when we try to point the finger at someone, there's another 3.5 fingers back at us. So just be aware that whatever reactions we're having, whatever is triggering us, that person is just a mirror to you. It's showing you something that you need to see. It's mirroring a thought, pattern, or belief back to you. What do you need to heal and become aware of within yourself? And week 4 is the most powerful week to do that. So I highly recommend creating the time and space so that you can be aware of it. If we keep busy and busyness is just distractions. We can distract ourselves from ourselves all day long. We can be out and be busy. And my mother-in-law is the absolute epitome of busy and self-avoidance. Working full-time and an old age and shopping and this and that. And she just never, ever, 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 ever stops. She's running so fast away from herself, which is just, part of her evolution and the life contract that she has this lifetime. But if we, allow ourselves time and space to sit, meditate, journal, be in nature, just inviting that slowness back in so we can reconnect with ourselves and reconnect back with nature. So slow living really, really has its qualities and what we need, and to bring in ritual and ceremony and routines back into our lives and share that with our children. So I just popped these up here. So we've got the new moon rituals, So again, you can just bring these in. You can have a new moon ritual, and if your cycle's not on the new moon, you can still have a new moon ritual. And then you can still have a week 1 ritual as well. You know, you can honor the external moon and the internal moon, or both. It's up to you. I do both, and then integrate them. So yeah, so new moon rituals. So this is right at this phase of the lunar cycle. It's a time for release and reset. Write down what you want to release on a bit of paper and burn it. Is a really powerful way to release what's coming up for you. Write down your intentions and manifestations. You would inviting in stick inviting in and stick on your wall, or write in your sacred diary. If you're menstruating, do a blood offering to the earth. Cleanse your home with smoke. Release the old and inviting the new, fresh, joyful energy. So this is something that I do every new moon, is I'll write in my diary what I'm releasing and what I'm inviting. And then cleansing your home is very important to do that with the new moon, using your sage or Palo Santo. Call on your higher self and guides for guidance. Sleep with mugwort under your pillow for insightful dreams. So we're more connected to the spirit realm in the new moon phase, and that's why it's very important to cleanse your home. But you can also ask your higher self and guides for guidance in your dreams, which is really nice. And if you're not bleeding, it's a beautiful time to do a yoni steam. So like I mentioned, it's powerful to do a yoni steam in the autumn phase of your cycle. But to keep in, you know, if you can create rituals with the actual moon as well, it's like, you know, acknowledging our inner moon, but if we can acknowledge the external moon, we're more likely to link up with the external moon. And it's also, you know, it's a good thing. Like I fertilize my plants every full moon, and if I'm not bleeding, I'll do a yoni steam every new moon and full moon, just depending. I use the moon as, I know where I am in my cycle, but I use the moon also as my calendar of things that I do. So it also helps women to stay on track, but also to be connected to the external, what's happening externally and affecting us internally. Self oil massage, take a bath with salt. So, you know, if you do have a bath every new moon and every full moon. That can be another ritual that you do to connect with the moon's energies. Full moon is nourish and create time to give thanks with positive affirmation journal, or create affirmation cards for the month ahead. I give great thanks for. That's a journaling prompt for the full moon. You know, a lot of people say the full moon is a time for releasing, but that's not the case. It can bring your awareness to what you need to release, because the moonlight does shine light on our shadows. So quite often things can come up in the full moon to be released, but you're more than wanting to release it in the autumn phase, or, you know, in the waning moon, and then into the dark moon is more a time for releasing. Grandmother moon illuminates our potential and manifesting opportunities, as well as illuminating our shadows to transmute to light. The peak of creative fertile energy. Place your crystals outside on the earth for cleansing and energizing. Place a jar of filtered water under the moon on the earth, or you can buy a coconut from the shops. Or if you're in Indonesia, you can get a fresh coconut and put it out in the moonlight, and then the next day drink in the moon water, and drink in the moon energy. That's another beautiful ritual you can bring in. Go get a massage and nurture your fertility. If you're not bleeding, do a yoni steam, self-oil massage, take a bath, candles, essential oils, dance, and go to a full moon circle and connect with other women. So, you know, traditionally we would have had new moon circles where all the women were bleeding together and going to the red tent, but, you know, the new moon is a very inward time, and menstruating women are in a very inward time. So, you know, you try to run new moon circles and you won't get many people come, but if you run a full moon circle, lots of women come and gather. And so that's become more of a well, it's also in society, I think, well, it's about 50-50 from the polls that I've done. It was more, I guess it depends on the circle of people that you're studying, but it was 60% of women about 7 years ago when I did this study. 60% of women were menstruating on the full moon when I was here in the city, in Newcastle. And then the more recent study I did was when I was in Margaret River, and it was 50% of women were menstruating on the full moon and 50% were menstruating on the new moon. So maybe it's just we're at a time in society where we need menstruating women at different phases of the month, and adding in that healing energy, that releasing, detoxing energy is just shifted between the months. I think every, any day of the month, there's thousands or millions of women around the world menstruating on any day. So cycles are just here, there, and everywhere now. And yeah, obviously that's the energy that we need. But I did, when I had that download, I guess dream about the healing potential of if all women could menstruate at the same time, how powerful that would be. If all women had that level of awareness to menstruate on the new moon and all be releasing and inwards and honoring themselves and the feminine energy, and then all rising and creating and manifesting and giving thanks on the full moon, how powerful that would be. So yeah, we can dream about that, but it's obviously not what we need collectively, because it's not what's happening. So I'm going to open up for questions. Okay. Oh, you're both bleeding yesterday. Is that the true, or hang on? Wow, you're both menstruating. That's really cool. Aha. And you feel more connected at holding sacred events during the autumn phase, but haven't really understood it. So maybe it's just, that thinning of the veils, and you're feeling more connected to channel the messages that you need to channel. In your autumn phase. Interesting. So what about your feeding and bleeding? What about when you're feeding? Breastfeeding. Okay. Alicia's ovulating with a new moon. Cool. So yeah, your cycle's flipped. So you are more in service. You're you, and that makes sense then, that you would have been, it's in your autumn phase. You're still wanting to be in service, but that's just after the full moon, isn't it? After the new moon, going into the full moon. So it's like that full moon energy is peaking externally. And you've just ovulated. So it's like you're then able to share that energy that you've got from that. Sort of like, the universe is supporting you to be in service during this time. Cool. And feeding and bleeding. So whereabouts are you in your cycle, Christy? Let me just check on Facebook if I've got any questions on there. Yeah, so when you're breastfeeding and have two lilies, it's obviously very challenging to really create the inward space that we need. But just, it's a fine line, because you don't want to create, okay, so you started bleeding yesterday and you're on day 2. So just bring in your children into your practice as much as possible. Just allow them to see and be aware, which you probably already do, of the inward time that you need and that they need as well, because you're bleeding with the new moon and they're probably sleeping longer and need more rest as well. And like I mentioned, just cooking up a big pot of dal has been the greatest tool to not have to cook or clean as much for those 3 days. And getting your partner or your tribe involved as much as possible, so you can get at least a day or half a day or something, or an evening to yourself somehow, just to have that time and space. It's really important for us to fill up our cup so that we can be unconditional loving for the month ahead. Just doing without huge expectations and not putting extra pressure on ourselves. It's just important to do what we can do, what tools we have and what time and space we have, but have the intention to create whatever you can create. Even if it's just having a bath after the kids have gone to bed or something that's really important to have that space of inwardness. And yeah, massages and womb steaming, and yeah, everything's still relevant while you're breastfeeding. But like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of breastfeeding women that don't have their menstrual cycle and really struggle, which I was really struggling with, just not having that ebb and flow through the month. But then I just reminded myself to really connect with the moon phases and have that release, and setting intentions and burning what I'm releasing in the new moon, and cleansing my house, and then full moon, putting out my crystals, putting out my moon water, giving thanks for what I want to give thanks for, which is, you know, creating and manifesting. And then once I brought those tools in, it just created that ebb and flow and that deeper connection with the feminine energy, which is really beautiful and very important. I'm just going to check Facebook. Okay. All right. Cool. Oh. I know for myself that breastfeeding and having little ones put me into masculine a lot. Yeah, for sure. And that's only because we don't have our tribe with us. You know, traditionally we were living with our grandmothers and our aunties and our sisters, and we had this level of support around us at all time. Like really, the mother would have been just hanging out, not doing too much except for nourishing her children and being present with her children, and probably getting more of her own time and space because other people of the tribe would be hanging out with their children as well. It really does take a tribe to raise children in that way. But us modern women, we have to step in that masculine role. We have to have masculine energy so that we can do it all: cook, clean, groceries, pay the bills, still work. You know, we have, and it's kind of like looked up to in society, isn't it? You know, the quicker that women can bounce back after they've had a baby and be out running and surfing and doing the groceries and back at work, then the more she's looked at like, wow, she's an amazing woman, powerful woman. But it's not the case. It's not the energy that we need to be cultivating. It's very, very masculine. But yeah, we kind of have to be in masculine to survive because of the pressures that are put on us from living away from our tribe, living away from our family. Yes. And yeah, I did that. I lived away from my family when I had my baby and my husband with an illness, and I've only just moved back to be closer to family, and it's so much easier. I'm actually living at my brother's house with my nieces, and you know, the children play and we share the house duties and the cooking and the cleaning, and it's like, oh, this is like what I need. This is what I've needed the last 3 years. But it was also beautiful having my own space and my own beautiful home through that phase. So it's sort of like, you know, there's always compromise in some way, it seems. But yeah, the only thing we can do, I guess, is bring in the feminine aspects as much as possible through our menstrual cycle. And the autumn and the winter weeks are the very powerful ones to really be in our feminine, to really just stop and be rather than do. And that's our inward time. You know, I feel like that's, if we can spend 2 weeks inward working on ourselves, reading self-help books, seeing healers, getting massages, 2 weeks of inward time working on ourselves, and then 2 weeks outward being of service. And then there's a nice balance, because, you know, quite often you can see people in society where they're either really inward and they're just working on themselves and they don't have the inspiration to be in service and share. Or there's other people that are in service and sharing, but they've then stepped into that service role and they've forgotten to work on themselves. So we need to have that balance of, yeah, working on ourselves, continually working on ourselves, evolving and growing and healing, and then sharing from that space. And yeah, the 2 weeks in and 2 weeks out just really is working for me. I feel like I've got a really good balance of working on myself and then being of service. And I know both of you women are in service, so hopefully that resonates and something that you can implement as well. Okay, I'm just going to think how to close, what's resonating to close. I've got my drum. We could do a little bit of drumming. I'd like to just do a few breathing practices like we did at the beginning. So just imagining our crown opening, connecting with the cosmic galactic energy, and breathing that into our heart space with a nice deep breath in through our nose, allowing our heart space to open and soften. And exhaling down through our body, through our womb space, down into the center of the earth. Doing that a couple more times to your own breath. Okay, and to acknowledge the original custodians of this land, to send my reverence and respect to the Awabakal country that I am now on, the Awabakal tribe, and to all the country, all the nation, tribes around all of Australia, since most of us on this call and watching the replay are in Australia. I know some are from Europe. But I would like to do a song that you might be familiar if you've seen, I do on Instagram a lot with my daughter. It's Inanay. It's an Aboriginal lullaby. Feels like a really nice way to close our session together. So you're welcome to join in and sing if you'd like, or lay down and meditate and continue to do breathing into your heart space and down through your womb space while I do this with you. I'll just take my headphones out. I just want to acknowledge as well that we're in a very powerful time for healing. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, you can jump onto Instagram and see my Aquarius, Age of Aquarius video I did yesterday with Shay. The new moon is actually in Aquarius. It's helping bring the truths to light, but we're also going through a really powerful time of healing the feminine wounds. So the mother archetype, the wife archetype, sister, daughter, all the feminine archetypes are coming to light to heal because of the patriarchal rulership and the suppression that we've gone through for the last 5,000 years. These wounds are being activated at this time for healing. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, just to be aware of, the healing that needs to take place. We talked about the collective female pain body. It's very active right now. And with that, whatever land that we're on, we're connected to the trauma and wounds of the land, but also the trauma and the wounds of the females of this land. So when I acknowledge the original custodians of the land, I'm acknowledging the stolen generation and the genocide that has taken place and is still taking place to this day. And it's part of the healing that needs to take place is being aware of it, communicating it, voicing it, sharing it, and not suppressing it or pretending it doesn't exist. So I also wanted to acknowledge this comes from my place of white supremacy, and that I believe my ancestors would have played a part in the roles of this suppression of the original custodians of the land. And I'm acknowledging the pain and suffering that they've endured. And I'm doing the best I can from my heart space to acknowledge that and heal that. And I love this chant because it does just bring that connection back with the Aboriginal peoples of this land. There's no translation for this song. It's a lullaby, a children's song. Children love it. I love to share it because it's very powerful. And yeah, we need to remember, reconnect, and heal. Inane kapuana, inane kapuana, hey hula, hula hula, hula yippee yippee yay. Guana 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 gua, choo. Guana 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 gua, choo. Inane kapuana, inane kapuana, hey hula, hula hula, hula yippee yippee yay. Guana 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 gua, choo. Guana 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 gua, choo. Inane kapuana, inane kapuana, hey hula, hula hula, hula yippee yippee yay. Guana 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 gua, choo. Guana 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 gua, choo. And just to finish up, I'd like to guide you through alternate nostril breathing. If you already know this practice, please go ahead and do it however you like to do it. I love this yogic practice as it does connect the mind and body. It balances the feminine and masculine energy. It connects the nadis, which is the masculine and feminine channels that go through the body, through the chakras. And when I mentioned that the first hour of your day determines the rest of your day, this is a really beautiful thing that you can bring into your morning self-care practice. You can do it again before you go to bed to calm your nervous system before you go to bed. If you're experiencing painful menstruation, you can use this practice. It does help to calm the pain receptors in the body. So I like to teach with 2 fingers, index finger and middle finger on your third eye, covering your right nostril and breathing in deeply your left nostril, which is the feminine energy. Breathing in nice and deep. Cover the left nostril and then breathe out the right. Breathe in the right nostril. Cover and breathe out the left. Breathe in the left nostril. Cover and then breathe out the right. Breathe in the right. Cover and breathe out the left. So just finding your own rhythm now. Your own breath, noticing the slight pause at the top of the inhale and the slight pause at the bottom of the exhale. Deep, even, relaxed breaths. The left side is feminine, and the right side is masculine. Finishing with your next left exhale. Relaxing your palms down over your womb space. Allowing the connection to integrate. Now placing both your palms over your heart space. Noticing what you notice. Feeling the beating of your heart. The warmth from your heart space radiating out into your palms. Evoking the emotion of love in the heart space. And feeling that love radiating out into your palms and into your auric field, generated in the heart space. Evoking gratitude in the heart space. Gratitude for yourself for making the effort to be here today in this workshop. Gratitude to anyone else who has made it possible for you to be here. And feeling that love and gratitude radiating out from the heart space into the palms and into your auric field. Energy around your body. With all that love and gratitude radiating out. Now moving your palms down over your womb space. Feeling and sharing that love and gratitude with the heart space. From the heart space to the womb space. It's easy enough to generate love and gratitude in the heart space. Can we generate or share the love and gratitude with our womb space? Notice the difference in temperature. Notice the different feelings, emotions, sensitivities you may feel. Connecting with a deep connection for our womb space with love and gratitude for all she does for us, all she has to offer. And slowly coming back to your screen if you want to, or you can keep your eyes closed with that deep inward energy. From my heart space to your heart space, with all my love and gratitude for you for making the effort to be here today, for stepping into this space of sacred menstruation, for healing, for insight. And I hope that you can share this medicine with your tribe, your children. It's a really important time in our collective to reconnect, to remember the earth's wisdom and the moon's wisdom and implement it into our life, and to label our life as sacred. It's just not just sacred menstruation. It's every aspect of our life is sacred. And we spoke at the beginning a little bit about duality, good, bad, right, wrong, light, dark, feminine, masculine. There's separation, but really there's unity. Everything is connected. We can't have one without the other. So we need to see our life as sacred, see all the aspects of life as sacred, because even the most challenging times bring the most beautiful gifts. Even the most shadow aspects of ourselves contain the most powerful gifts. So to be in this sacred space of reverence and to share our medicine with the world is so important now more than ever. We need to speak up, we need to share, we need to be of service.
and doesn't mean having to be in services in such a huge way of, you know, running workshops with hundreds of people. We don't need to be doing that, even if we're just in service to our children, because the awareness that we can bring to them, the healing that we can bring to them, is then helping the next generation. And each person's role is different. You know, some people's role through this healing is just to be in a cave meditating, in their room meditating, not so much being in service and sharing. But we all have a special role to play, and you'll know whether it is to be meditating on your own or to be using your voice and sharing. And yeah, I guess that's why I'm sharing these workshops, is because as women, if we can really heal our feminine wounds and to label our period, our menstrual cycle as sacred, it then reconnects us with our power, our insight, our prophecy, and it helps us to be more fulfilled, more empowered, to be our own healers, to share our wisdom with our family and our community. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for everything that you do. And yeah, please feel free to reach out at any time. I'm on Instagram in service, sharing as much as I can on there and answering questions. And I'm also available for, I've got a 3 moons coaching package, which I guide women through the different phases of their menstrual cycle. And also I do conscious conception. Everything's kind of, I like to do power of 3s. I can definitely do one hit wonders, but the power of 3 is when you can get really deep. And I really love conscious conception because it is stepping, it's you know, important phase of healing the next generation. Whatever state our body is, both partners, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually at the time of conception, is then determining the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual composition of our children. So this is something I'm very passionate about, detoxing and nourishing on a very deep level before conception takes place. And that, in hand with sacred menstruation, is my service. This is my role. I'm connected to my life path and my service for this lifetime, and that's what I have to offer. So I've also got my Shakti Code e-course, which is all the wisdom and insights that I have shared into one e-course, a 7-week journey to menstrual well-being and optimal fertility. And I'm currently in the process of creating a sacred menstruation e-course, which will be more specifically, you know, tailored down, more of a compact package of just each week you'll have rituals and homework to do through your cycle, very much what we've shared here, but with yoga and meditations and more practical tools to listen to each week of your menstrual cycle. So that's, yeah, exciting. And yeah, it feels beautiful that my daughter's now 3.5 and I'm going through a marriage separation. So I have the time and space to now focus a little bit more on my service out in the world. It feels like a very important time to be doing that. So yeah, thank you again with all my love and gratitude. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you all again in the near future. Many blessings. All my love. Om Shanti.